Hello there. Welcome in Thursday edition of the show. Glad to have you, whether you're listening on your radio, streaming the show online at extrasports1300.com, or you've downloaded the widely available and 100% free Extra Sports 1300 app, a veritable cornucopia of sports topics coming your way over the course of the next 3 hours, and I would love to get your opinion on them. The text and the phone line the same for your convenience, 719-247-1313. You can also hit me up on X. I am at Gingerly Tweets. And I want to make sure I do this right off the top. You know, Steph Curry got it in right before the end of his interview last night at the end of USA's win over Canada, and I will do it right off the top. Happy birthday, Liam. It's my son's birthday. He's a little bit older than Steph Curry's daughter. Turns the big 1-2 today. So, happy birthday, buddy. All right, speaking of Team USA versus Canada, a lot to unpack with it. And it was just a friendly. But it felt bigger than that, didn't it? Felt more consequential. And I think what you saw a little bit, especially early, and the U.S. was a little bit slow out of the gate. You got to keep in mind that Canada got about a week's head start on them in preparing. The first quarter of that game was quite ugly for the U.S., but they figured it out, and they ended up winning that game. But adjusting, it's a real adjustment to international basketball if you are an NBA player. It is, and that's been kind of part of the story over the last few years as the competition level internationally has taken a step forward, and it's not quite as easy as it used to be for the United States. Now other factors like time spent together, like the rules, things like that come into play, and international basketball is different. The dimensions of the three-point line are different. Some of the rules are different, and the officiating is different. And if I could boil the officiating at the international level down to just one thing to kind of encompass it all, they don't let you get away with stuff. Right? Things like hunting for fouls, star treatment. It doesn't exist like it does in the NBA. And maybe that's a reason to say that international basketball is better, but I'm not here to make that case. I'm just here pointing it out. You don't get away with as much because you have a certain status as a star basketball player. You just don't. And the guy that found that out the hard way last night was Joel Embiid. I mean, why do you think James Harden hasn't been played for Team USA since 2014? You think that's a coincidence? You think that's all because he doesn't want to play? It's different. And Joel Embiid last night clearly was up to the normal shenanigans that he is up to on a day-by-day basis in the NBA, and it just didn't work. It didn't fly, and it got him fouled out in the third quarter. 5 points, 6 rebounds, 3 assists, no blocks. Not an awful stat line, but took some ugly shots, and certainly fouling out in a friendly is not a great look. And then you couple that with the fact that Anthony Davis and Bam Adebayo, that pairing is awesome. The two of them together was phenomenal with that second unit. In fact, almost everything there is to like about Team USA's performance last night has to do with the second unit. But you watch Joel Embiid struggle mightily, foul out of the game, and you also watch Anthony Davis and Bam Adebayo look right at home and make it increasingly difficult for Team Canada to get to the rim and finish around the rim. I think it was a big catalyst for the U.S. winning that game last night. And you kind of put those two things together and you wonder, why is Joel Embiid on this team? Why is he there? Seems like they could get by with just Bam Adebayo and Anthony Davis. And it's not just why is Joel Embiid on this team? Why did Team USA go through the trouble? Okay, there's another layer to Joel Embiid's inclusion on this team, right? They poached him from France. He was all set to go. He wasn't going to be a member of Team USA. He got poached by Grant Hill, by Steve Kerr, by LeBron. I don't know. But he was all set. And then he changed his mind and he's playing for Team USA. Why? Why go through the extra hassle when you have big men like Anthony Davis and Bam Adebayo? And the answer is quite simple. Nikola Jokic. That's the reason. Tell me what the other one is. It's him. How could it not be? You've seen what, because you look at it and you're like, oh, Anthony Davis and Bam Adebayo, they'll be just fine. Really? Have you seen what Nikola Jokic did to both of those guys on his way to an NBA title? Have you seen what Nikola Jokic regularly does to Anthony Davis? They need Joel Embiid because of Nikola Jokic. And something that time has forgotten a little bit, because it was right before, actually, I would say, because I remember being at Nuggets training camp in the fall of 2016 and talking to Nikola Jokic about playing in Rio and what that meant to him, and using it as a springboard into that upcoming season. Nikola Jokic, before he was this Nikola Jokic, dropped 25 on Team USA. That was Nikola Jokic then. And when I asked Nikola Jokic that question, it wasn't because I was saying, oh, he's about to become a 3-time MVP. That's not what was behind that question. But I saw a guy play extremely well. And in recent Nuggets past, you had Carmelo Anthony going and playing for Team USA and coming back almost a completely different player. Playing on Team USA was a huge catalyst for Carmelo Anthony. That's why I asked the question of Nikola Jokic, not because I was seeing that he would become what he became. But before the MVPs, before anybody knew what Nikola Jokic was going to become, he put up 25, 6, and 6 against Team USA. That's why Joel Embiid's on this team, which is on a certain level ironic if you really think about it, because are we 100% sure that Joel Embiid can slow down Nikola Jokic? And I get if anyone can, it's Embiid. And if nothing else, we have gone through the process of elimination, but we just haven't seen it, even when they've been on the court together, to say nothing of Joel Embiid's annual trip out to Denver. Even in Philly, they don't guard each other. Do we really know? And to be fair, my confidence level in Nikola Jokic being able to guard Joel Embiid, even with what I saw last night, is not particularly high here. So trying to be fair to both parties, but do we know that Joel Embiid is the only thing standing in the way of Nikola Jokic absolutely shredding Team USA on July 28th? But I get the thought process. If nothing else, Joel Embiid is a handful of fouls that you have at your disposal. The gauntlet that Nikola Jokic went through 2 years ago or last season, I guess it's tricky because we are done with this current NBA season. But the gauntlet that he went through, or as close to a gauntlet as there could be, right? Every big man outside of Joel Embiid that you think could possibly handle Nikola Jokic, he went through and made it look easy. Now Team USA has basically put them all on the same team and said, you're going to have to deal with all of them. I'm actually surprised Kat didn't get a call. Rudy unavailable. But that's what Team USA is doing. And you listen to Grant Hill talk about the whole Derek White inclusion, and we'll get into that in a little bit. But everybody on this team, if you're not LeBron, KD, or Steph Curry, it doesn't matter what role those guys play. They're on the team because of who they are, what they've done, and quite frankly, what they still are. And you were reminded of that last night with LeBron and Steph. KD didn't play because of the calf injury. But those are the three guys that are just there no matter what. Everybody else that's on Team USA serves a purpose, fills a role. Now, you don't want to get too down the road of getting a bunch of role players, because then you don't have enough talent to compete on this level. But all of these guys have a role. They're there for a reason. Not just, this isn't a team of just the 12 best American players. It's not. Some guys are on this team because of what they bring. And Joel Embiid represents, if nothing else, another big body for Jokic to have to go through. And at best, what Team USA hopes is that he's actually able to defend Nikola Jokic, which just makes the 28th all the more intriguing, because we might actually see Joel Embiid guard Nikola Jokic for large portions of that basketball game. But that's why he's here. Yes, he's one of the 12 best American. He has dual citizenship. He is absolutely one of the 12 most talented players that Team USA could pick. I'm not denying that. But with most of the teams in this Olympic field, what you saw from Bam Adebayo and Anthony Davis would be enough. Not against Serbia. And let's not forget that Greece is in this Olympic field as well. So Embiid serves a purpose. But given what you saw last night, Nikola Jokic might have him fouled out by halftime. 719-24-7-1313. Take your thoughts on Team USA's victory over Canada. Joel Embiid wasn't the only star last night that struggled, but there were also plenty who shined. We'll get into both of those things coming up in a little bit. Coming up next, Coach Prime at Big 12 Media Day. Don't think I need to say more than that. Speak of the devil. Don't miss the Downtown Summerfest, a dynamic kickoff event presented in Olympic City, USA by Colorado Springs Sports Corporation and the U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Museum. Join us on July 27th for a day filled with excitement, showcasing our city's Olympic spirit. It's Downtown Summer Fest. Right there by the, it will stretch out longer than that, but by the museum down there. So get that on your calendar, July 27th. No surprise that the Colorado Buffaloes are probably the primary topic of conversation in Las Vegas for Big 12 Media Days, and Coach Prime delivered as he always does at the podium. One quote above all others, one exchange above all others is making the rounds. Take a listen to this.
My wins are totally different than your wins. Your wins, you just judging football. That's why I have to start out and give you education and academics and so forth. I have to give you those things so you understand there's a greater scope. I can't win 9 games and our GPA suffers. Our GPA can't be high, but we lose another 8 games. We can't not go and grab high school players and you got a bunch of guys in the portal, out of the portal that's getting incarcerated. My wins are different. We have to win in every area. That's the way we're judged. And I'm cool with that because we come a little different.
He's right. And the thing he said at the end there is the most important part of it. But what he's saying is 100% true. If we already saw what happens once the Buffaloes fall off, like they did when they got into Pac-12 play last year, right? There were a lot of people waiting for the other shoe to drop after the start they had in non-conference. Heck, you know, their wins in the non-conference, there were plenty of people that were taking away from them, that were not giving credit. Well, it's hard for TCU to prepare for a completely new team. And, CSU's not that good, and they had to beat them in overtime. Deion Sanders is 100% right. Even if this team contends for a Big 12 title, there will be a lot of very loud voices trying to detract from it. Oh, they don't develop. You know, they're using a bunch of other people's players and they lure them in because of, you know, the spotlight, and they don't do anything themselves. They just poach other teams' players and win that way. Or it will be, well, this is all well and good, but wait till Shedeur and Travis Hunter are gone. He's right. The bar is going to, the goalposts, I should say, are going to be constantly moved back for Deion Sanders in this program. There are so many people out there that don't just think what he's doing is wrong, not the way that college football is supposed to be. There are not just a lot of people thinking that Deion Sanders would fail. There are plenty of people who want him to fail. And that's just a fact. There are absolutely those people out there. And of course, they are balanced out by a lot of people, especially in this state, who in a quiet moment would tell you that they fully believe that Deion Sanders can walk on water. I've seen it. I've sat in those press conference rooms. There are sycophants, There are fanboys. They exist, and they are all out here, and they are ready to preach the gospel of Deion Sanders. So the idea that the whole world is against him, no. But there are enough people that are against him, and those people have powerful microphones, powerful platforms, and they will detract from any success the Colorado Buffaloes have this season. This is a grand experiment that is going on in Boulder. And people have their doubts that it'll work. People think it's an experiment that no one should take on. And that is also part of the reason why there are so many people who are perpetually sharpening their knives, just waiting for the right moment. But here's the other part of it, and it goes to what Deion Sanders said at the end of that clip. He says they do a little different. I would amend that. They bring it on themselves. The same thing that brings them a huge boost in NIL money, in fan support, in alumni support, in network support, everything that makes the good for this program come to Boulder is what also draws the negative. The bravado of Deion Sanders invites both. And I've made this comparison before. But if you want, because what he's doing, there's nothing like it in college football. Like, yeah, Lane Kiffin is getting the closest to it. But everything that Deion Sanders is doing in Boulder, nobody's quite doing it that same way. So you got to get not just out of college football or college athletics. You got to get out of sports completely. The closest thing, having covered this program for the entirety of the time he's been there, right? Over this past year or so, the only thing that I can put even in the same conversation is the presidential candidacy of Donald Trump. And I'm not trying to be political. I'm not taking a side. I'm not saying good, bad. I'm just everything that Donald Trump is invites the same thing that Deion Sanders brings in, right? When you are so braggadocious, when you use every opportunity you can to tout yourself, to talk about how amazing you are, there are going to be people who will believe you and will blindly follow you. And nothing that you can do will be wrong in their eyes. But there will be maybe an equal amount, maybe slightly less, maybe slightly more. Success for both of those gentlemen in their endeavors, I think, dictates that a little bit, but there is some ratio that is pretty close to people who absolutely hate these two people because of what they are. It's the closest thing, and that's why it's such a phenomenon. Because you can't compare it to anything else you see in sport. These are two mega personalities, two men who are supremely confident in everything they do. They believe inherently that what they're doing is the right way to do things, and they will tell you at every turn how good they are at it. Deion Sanders is absolutely right. They can't just win football games. They can't just be good in the classroom. They can't just have a great philanthropic record. They can't just bring in the NIL dollars. They have to do all of it. That's what he signed up for. And I don't think that Deion Sanders is under any misconception. And I don't think his eyes have been all of a sudden opened to all this. I think he knew. I think he knew what this would be. Sure, did he think he'd have more success in year one? I think he would tell you that himself. But the idea of what he's going to bring upon himself, learning to win at this level is one thing. And maybe Deion Sanders is doing some learning in that regard. But in terms of the circus that he was going to bring to Boulder, he always knew what it would be. But he signed up for it. He wants it. Because that's the only way that a program that was in as bad a shape as the one he just inherited is ever going to move the needle. Said it when he was hired. Rick George had to do this. Yes, he was unproven at the highest level of college football. Yes, he didn't have a ton of college football coaching experience to begin with. There were risks associated. There were weaknesses in Deion Sanders. But Rick George had to hire him. Especially the way that college athletics are going. And anything less than the full prime experience was not going to do it. But it's not all gravy. It's not all great. There are detractors. There are people who want to see them fail. But they want everyone. That's the thing, too. They want it all. Not only do they bring it on themselves, they do it willingly. Because they know that the people who are sharpening their knives constantly, who are looking for every excuse to knock what Deion Sanders is trying to do, helps them. It helps them in recruiting. It helps them in fundraising. It helps them get a better time slot on Fox. It's all necessary. If it was all positive, it would be different. If it's all negative, it would be different. Rick George said it yesterday. I saw an interview he did. Maybe it was with DNVR or somebody else. He put it perfectly. Right? There's no lukewarm. There's no middle. Right? You either are very close to one end of the spectrum, which is, I love it, or you're on the other side of the spectrum. And you can't deviate that much. There's just not a middle ground with Deion Sanders. And even if you try to take a middle ground, which I would say I try to do regularly. I try to point out the deficiencies, but I also look at the bigger picture and say what he's doing is necessary, and I do think it's going to ultimately work. I try to slow down some of the expectations, but I do think ultimately Deion Sanders will be viewed as a success in Boulder. But even when I try to do that, I'm accused of either hating on him or being a sycophant. And I promise you I'm neither. But that's just the environment it creates. You're either with him or against him. That's how Rick George put it. 719-247-1313. More from Coach Prime and, of course, Shador from Big 12 Media Day. Take your thoughts at 719-247-1313. Coming up next, something that happened this afternoon that only one other pitcher in the history of baseball has done until Paul Skeens did it. The best pro rodeo cowboys and cowgirls from the U.S., Canada, and Mexico are right here in Colorado Springs this week for the NFR Open at the Pikes Peak or Bust Rodeo. Tickets are getting close to being sold out. For each night, it runs through Saturday. Get your tickets now at Pikes Peak or Bust. Earlier today, just within the last hour or so, Paul Skeens did something that is quite remarkable, but this is pretty much an every 5-day occurrence. Today, he threw 7 innings against the Milwaukee Brewers, in which he struck out 11 and did not give up a single hit. This is the second time in his career, his long 2-month career, where he's had multiple outings like this. No hits, 11 strikeouts, 7 innings. Here is the list of pitchers to have multiple starts of 0 hits, 11 plus strikeouts in a season. Okay? This according to Joe Block. Paul Skeens, Nolan Ryan. That's it. That's the list. In the history of baseball, 2 guys have had multiple starts of no hits and 11 or more strikeouts. And Paul Skeens is doing it as a rookie. It is getting to a point where there is no superlative that he is unworthy of. He is what we all hoped Steven Strasburg would be. He is what Steven Strasburg was billed as. This generational, all-time prospect that was going to dominate on the mound. And the reason why Paul Skeens doesn't have 2 no-hitters is because of Steven Strasburg. Because 7 innings is not a no-hitter. We're not going to do that. People already tried this stuff with the combined no-hitter. It's not the same thing. Paul Skeens threw 7 no-hit innings. That's what he did. He did not throw a no-hitter. Do I think he would have finished the game off today without giving up a hit? Yeah, I do. But I can't get there because he only threw 7 innings. But the reason why is because of Steven Strasburg. The Pirates know what they have. And they know how quickly, especially in today's league, this can all go down the tubes. You hate the fact that he's not able to finish off starts like this. You want Paul Skeens to have no hitters. How insane would it be for a rookie pitcher, and not just a rookie pitcher? He got a late start on the season. He's been there 2 months. To have multiple no-hitters within 2 months of your career beginning, I don't even have to look that up. I promise you that has never happened in the history of baseball. And baseball has been around for a very long time. Sometimes things happen in sports and we want them to be the best thing ever. We want them to be historically relevant. We want to believe as sports fans that we're witnessing something that our fathers and their fathers never got to see. And we turn some things that really aren't that into that. right? We do it all the time. And a lot of it is recency bias, but a lot of it is just our longing to witness history. That's part of why we watch sports. To watch somebody do something that has never been done. To believe that we're witnessing greatness. There's no exaggeration necessary with what Paul Skeens is doing. He's making history. We're witnessing greatness. We're watching something that only the greatest pitcher ever has done. And Nolan Ryan did not do it in his rookie year, folks. And while many people were counting down until Paul Skeens made his major league debut, he didn't come out of nowhere. Okay, I understand that many people didn't jump on the bandwagon till LSU and they said, who is this guy? And maybe in their minds, he came out of nowhere. You and I know better. He didn't come out of nowhere. He came out of the academy. We knew that he was special. And then more of the sports world figured it out when he was at LSU. And now everyone's figuring it out. If it lines up with his normal workload, his normal spot in the rotation, he must start the All-Star game. I know about the guy in LA, and he is a box office draw, and many people will be going to the game to watch him. But we've seen that before. In fact, right here in Colorado, we saw something truly unique and special when it comes to Shohei Ohtani at an All-Star game. We're not going to get that. He's not going to pitch. The biggest draw of interest in this year's All-Star game, I promise you, is Paul Skeens. And this start will only further cement that. He has to be prominently featured in this All-Star game. This is what, if he's not prominently featured, and again, you know, the bigger picture has to be considered. As frustrated as Pirates fans and baseball fans in general might be that he hasn't been allowed to finish these starts, you have to look at the bigger picture. You have to, because the Pirates, think about that franchise. They cannot afford to let Paul Skeens go the way of Steven Strasburg. They just can't. He can change the trajectory of a perennial doormat. He has that kind of pull pitching once every 5 days. As long as it works out with his normal pitching schedule, he has to be prominently featured. What other use are All-Star games? I mean, really, what other use is there for an All-Star game? We see these guys all, you know, we have access to them at all times. Everybody plays everybody. Every day that goes by or every year that goes by, these All-Star games don't look anything like the sport that we love to watch. It's an exhibition in every sense of the word. So what other use is there than to prominently feature your game's biggest stars? And I'm not saying Ohtani is old news. He's still a marvel to watch, even just hitting the baseball. But this year, it's about the guy in Pittsburgh. 7 innings, no hits, 11 strikeouts, and a walk. We are witnessing something special, something historic. And it can't go unmentioned that he pitched just up the road from where I am currently standing. It is remarkable. 719-247-1313. Take your thoughts on the latest Paul Skeens outing. Albert texting in on Deion Sanders and his comments that he can't just win. He has to win in every aspect that he possibly can because of the detractors, because of the critics. Albert says if you peel away the glitter, glamour, grandstanding, and adaptation to the modern-day college football environment, Deion is an old-fashioned coach. He values the same outcomes as Nick Saban, Bobby Bowden, or Lou Holtz. It's just a different way in a very different environment. And that is 100% spot on. He wants guys to do well in the classroom. He's not in love with NIL. He makes his guys take financial literacy classes. It's a requirement. He is old school. And he's not just in it for his own glorification, and he's not just in it for the glorification of his children. And that's a big talking point for the detractors is, oh, he's just doing it for himself. He's just doing it for his kids. No, he's not. And unfortunately, the only way that people are going to see that is when Shador and Shiloh are gone. And Travis. That's the only way. Right? Those people are going to believe that until they see Deion Sanders remaining on the CU sideline without his children. And, by the way, being successful. But I do think his heart's in the right place. I do think if I had a son that was a high-level high school player, I would want him to play for Deion Sanders. But that's not the side that a lot of people see. And to be honest, again, to be fair to both sides, it's not exactly the side that Deion Sanders showcases. Now, he does it locally. If you follow him on a day-to-day basis, he talks about, so-and-so was student athlete of the week because of their GPA. He does this on a daily basis. When he says he talks about this stuff, he does. It's just, it can't cut through the other stuff. And I don't think that he really wants it to. I think he knows what sells. I think he knows what moves product and moves tickets and all that kind of stuff. And Joel Klatt has said this. And Joel Klatt's been embedded with that program more than maybe anybody else in the media. Said 90, I don't remember the exact number, 90 to 95%. Deion Sanders and Nick Saban are the same guy. They're not in an Aflac commercial together just by happenstance. Okay. They do see eye to eye a lot. And they are kindred spirits in many ways. But the 5, 10, 3%, whatever it is, difference makes all the difference. And it has to. It has to. Because if Deion Sanders Think about that. Let's just strip away all of that stuff that Albert's talking about. If Deion Sanders went about his business at CU like Nick Saban did at Alabama, he would be on the unemployment line within 2 seasons. There is no way that donors, sponsors, alumni, as much as CU alumni want to say that they're about education, trust me. If he conducted himself like Nick Saban and it was just about the kids and it was just about coaching football and it wasn't about all this stuff, all the benefits that CU Boulder is seeing would not come in. He can't operate the way Nick Saban does. It's that 3 to 5 to 10% that makes all the difference. And again, makes the difference to people who love Deion Sanders, but also makes the difference to people who want to criticize him. 719-24-7, 1313. Coming up next, Joel Embiid wasn't the only NBA star that struggled last night in Team USA versus Canada. Talk about that next here on Extra Sports 1300. Drive Time Sports, Ryan Kaufman with you on this Thursday, July 11th. You may know it as Free Slurpee Day. I know it is my younger of the two sons' birthday. Mentioned at the top of the show. Very nice. Tucker texting in. Very happy birthday to your son on his big 12 and many, many more. Appreciate that, Tucker. I will pass the word along because he don't listen to the show. I wonder, though, Steph Curry last night after Team USA beat Canada shouted out his daughter. Now, I'm not making up that my son's birthday is today. It literally is today. But I just found it kind of funny that last night, Steph Curry, in the post-game on-court interview, shouted out his daughter, Ryan, who turned 9. I wonder if she was watching. Because if she was, knowing that my son does not listen to the show, I may have to have a conversation. And it may need to happen. Maybe not tonight because it is his birthday, but first thing tomorrow morning. Hey, so Steph Curry's daughter watches him play basketball. Why don't you listen to me talk about basketball? Or he can watch. Oh, wait, I don't have him on social media. Maybe he can't. Well, YouTube. You can watch on YouTube. No excuses. This show is available in video form each and every day on our social media platforms at Extra Sports 1300 on Facebook, X, Instagram, and yes, YouTube. Started the show by talking about Joel Embiid, and it was a struggle for him. Fouled out in the third quarter, left many people wondering why it is that he's even on this team. And I said it's very simply Nikola Jokic. Well, the same answer could kind of be applied to the other NBA star that struggled last night, that being Jamal Murray of Team Canada. 3 of 9 from the field, 1 of 6, I think, from three-point range. I don't even remember seeing him in the second half. It was not a great night for Jamal Murray. And suffice to say, Dwight Powell does not run that two-man game quite as well as Nikola Jokic does. Jamal Murray had a really difficult time last night getting shots off against his primary defender for most of the night was Jrue Holiday. Right? And we know who Jrue Holiday is, what he's all about. But may I remind you that in 2 matchups with Jrue Holiday and the Boston Celtics this year, Jamal Murray dropped 35 points and 19 points. Okay, so it's not like every time those two guys get together that Jrue Holiday gets the better of Jamal Murray. In fact, this year it was quite the opposite. But again, and this is not to pile on Dwight Powell, but Dwight Powell is no Nikola Jokic. But this is, you want to see him succeed, right? You wanted Jamal Murray last night to have a better night than he did. It's kind of like what we've been talking about with the Serbia matchup on the 28th. I think a lot of Nuggets fans would say, have Jokic put up 35, 15, and 10, and Team USA win. Which I don't think is that far-fetched that could be what happens on the 28th, because Team USA, even with Joel Embiid struggling, yeah, they're loaded with talent. They got enough to win the gold medal. That's one of the big takeaways of last night. Yeah, they're good on talent. They got enough. You wanted Jamal Murray to ball out last night and for Team USA to win. But I will say that last night, and if this happens again in Paris, this is a good thing. And this is necessary. A little uncomfortable, but it's a good thing and it's necessary. I don't think that Jamal Murray right now is seriously contemplating a future outside of the Denver Nuggets and away from Nikola Jokic. I really don't think that. But it is good when you're in a negotiation to remind somebody how good they have it where they currently are. Right? Every little bit helps, because that's what this is going on right now between Jamal Murray and the Denver Nuggets. This is not, this is not combative. Okay? This isn't time to panic. This isn't Jamal Murray's going to leave for nothing. This isn't the Denver Nuggets don't want Jamal Murray. Like, it's not that. It's a negotiation where you didn't think there would be one. And when there's a negotiation where you didn't think there could be one, then that leads to some hurt feelings. That leads to some pretty extreme and outlandish claims about what this is and what it could turn into. I don't think it's going to have that doomsday scenario play out for either side. But make no mistake about it, this is a negotiation. The Nuggets want to negotiate the terms of Jamal Murray's next contract. They don't want to just rubber stamp it and give him full freight all the years, no clauses, no nothing. They don't want to. This is business, even with a guy that they love, and a guy, to not lose Jamal Murray's place in all of this, they don't win a title without him. They don't. Both sides need each other. But that's what I'm getting at. Okay, if even a little sliver of a thought gets into Jamal Murray's head where he's like, man, I miss Nikola Jokic. If that entered his mind at all last night, that's a win for the Denver Nuggets. It is, because how many stars have you seen that say, you know what? It's me. It's all me. Or even if, because I don't think Jamal Murray's quite wired that way. Even if there's a star that says, as good as I have it here, I can replicate that somewhere else. Right? And call it ego, call it confidence, call it whatever you want. But it exists. And it's part of the reason why Jamal Murray, Nikola Jokic, Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, LeBron James, and the whole lot of them are where they are now. And you and I are hooping at the Y on the weekend. That supreme belief in self, as well as a few skills. But you need every little piece of ammunition you can get. And if Jamal Murray had any thought during this negotiation, once it starts back up or begins, once the Olympics are over, it wouldn't be a bad card to play by Calvin Booth to go, remember how much more difficult it was to get your shot off against elite competition? Don't you love playing with Nikola Jokic? Don't you want to continue that? All we're asking is that insert Nuggets demand here. Every little bit helps in a negotiation. But it's good. And I don't want Jamal Murray to struggle through the entire Olympics. And I don't think that he will. I think he'll have plenty of great performances because he's Jamal Murray and we know how he's wired, and he's about to step onto a stage in Paris that feels like one conducive to bringing out the best in him, but it's not going to be as easy without the big fella. Right? Wasn't easy for Kobe. When Shaq left, they need to get Powell in there. But this is a crucial point in Jamal Murray's career. I really believe that. Because of the contract he's about to sign, because of the window that is currently open for the Denver Nuggets, for this second luxury tax apron business, for the new NBA and all the parity that comes along with it. This is a huge point in his career. And I want every piece of motivation that he can get. Because I like highly motivated, determined Jamal Murray. So it's a good thing that Calvin Booth and Michael Malone publicly challenged him at that end of season press conference. It's good. It's necessary. And to a degree, it's good and necessary that Jamal Murray realizes how much better it is, as supremely talented as the Canadian team is, how much better it is to play with Nikola Jokic. If this is a negotiation, every little bit helps. But these two sides should want each other. It is a perfect marriage. But there, like any marriage, there are some sore spots. There are some problems. And right now, the problem with Jamal Murray is his availability. That's how the Nuggets see it. And I'm sure Jamal Murray has some things about the Denver Nuggets that he doesn't love. I don't think any of this is going to lead to a messy divorce, because I think they'll look at how good they are for each other and come to some sort of an agreement. Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic are the modern day Stockton and Malone. But really look at Stockton and Malone. If I made you pick who is more responsible for the other one, Karl Malone is more responsible for John Stockton than the other way around. And maybe I just opened up a can of worms with that. Feel free to rebut at 719-247-1313. But my point is, in any star duo throughout NBA history, it's not 50-50. It's not a perfect balance. One guy is capable of more success without the other one. And we've already seen how that goes. Right? Nikola Jokic for 2 playoffs without Jamal Murray was as good as he was during the trip to the NBA Finals. He just didn't have enough of a team around him. But they were still a playoff team. One of those years, they still made it out of the first round. And luckily, we don't even have evidence of what life would be like without Nikola Jokic. But I promise you, it would not go as well. So they both need each other. They don't win another title without Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic together. But just a gentle reminder that playing with Nikola Jokic is the boondoggle of a lifetime. Right? You got it pretty good when you're playing with that guy. I don't think that fact is lost on Jamal Murray at all. Just nice maybe to get a reminder every once in a while. Jamal Murray, after the game, was asked by Trey Rank about his extension and if he's thinking about it.
When we get there, we get there. I'm playing games right now for Canada, so that's not on my mind.
Yeah, and look, you need to be, when you're negotiating, you don't want one of the parties to be playing the most important basketball games of his life across an ocean. Okay, that's why they're waiting till after the Olympics. both parties need to be sitting face to face or at least both reachable and focused on getting this thing done. You don't want to be negotiating across an ocean while Jamal Murray is trying to bring his country a gold medal, which would make him a national hero. Negotiation can wait. There's time. 719-247-1313. We'll continue on with this Thursday edition of Drive Time Sports after a look at traffic.
Doesn't mean the show.
Your chance to win the last pair of Pikes Peak or Bus rodeo tickets I have to give away coming up in just a little bit. Right now, though, I will tell you that the Rocky Mountain State Games is Colorado's largest sports festival with over 12,000 athletes competing in nearly 40 different sports. Registration open for most of those sports, but every day, one of those sports has their registration closed. So act quickly, no matter what age or skill level you are as an athlete, you're welcome to compete at the Rocky Mountain State Games, RockyMountainStateGames.org. It's not just Papa Sanders that draws the ire of many in the college football world. His son, in that regard, is a regular chip off the old block.
I'm undefeated in the SWAC, so I already know what the expectation comes with. I know we're everybody's Super Bowl, so I'm really just I always stay level-headed, stay grounded, because I would never want to be that guy, look back, and not being able to take advantage of the moment that we have right now.
And of course, where everyone's Super Bowl was clipped and put out there on social media, and many people reacted to it. And Shedeur, like his father, is right. But it's not every team's Super Bowl in the sense of this is their biggest competition, and this is going to decide a championship of some sort. But he means it more in the sense of we're going to get their best. They're going to be the most motivated that they are in any game of the season. And I would say for 90% of the teams in college football, he's right. Just look. Do I have to bring back the Dan Lanning audio before the Oregon game? It is because of a couple of different reasons. One, the talking, right? It's part of it. It absolutely is. And the Buffs talked a lot before the Oregon game, if you recall. They talk a lot all the time. That's an easy thing to get motivated about. But more importantly, it's the stage you are stepping onto. Like UCLA sold out the game against Colorado, and it was their first sellout in I don't know how long. You're going to be in a prime slot, and I don't mean that in the sense of Coach Prime. I mean in a choice slot, a good slot in the college football schedule. You're going to be on a major network. You're going to be playing in front of a full house. That's an easy stage to get motivated for. And that's what CU brings to the table, no matter who their opponent is. There are some opponents that bring some of that with them too. And I think Oregon would qualify as that. But still, you get Dan Lanning yelling like a raving lunatic on camera about how CU plays for clicks. Shedeur's not wrong. And that's the thing, is that the Sanders are not incorrect in their assessment of certain situations. Okay? But again, they bring it on themselves because they are so boisterous. And just the line of every team we play, it's their Super Bowl, is going to feed that monster. But Shedeur is not mistaken. But here's the evolution that needs to happen with this program this year. It needs to start to go at least, from a Super Bowl in the sense of it's a big stage that you get super motivated for and a lot of eyeballs are going to be on the game, to this is a meaningful football game. The Colorado Buffaloes, in the grand scheme of things last year, did not play a lot of meaningful football games. Meaningful in the moment for the two teams. But this wasn't a bowl team. This wasn't a team that was even an afterthought in the Pac-12 race after only a few weeks. Part of what needs to happen in year 2 in Boulder is that these games have to carry significance outside of the circus, outside of social media, outside of all the talk and all of that stuff. It has to be, some of these games have to be actually billed as important games in the Big 12. That's the next step. And you could put a win total on it. You could put, but I think it's just, these games have to be meaningful. Get closer to the literal definition of a Super Bowl. Like, they have to start to carry more meaning. And that is solely on Colorado. Right? They met plenty of teams last year that were in the college football playoff conversation, that were in the Pac-12 title game conversation. They brought that. CU didn't. Now in the Big 12, CU has to bring that to the table. It can't just be a spectacle. It's got to mean something. That's the next step, a step that has to be taken. And a lot of that is dependent on the guy you just heard. A lot of it is dependent on Shedeur. And that will rub a lot of people the wrong way, because it's like, my goodness, Deion Sanders already hypes up his kid so much. You need to be hyped up even more. Don't even look at it that way. Look at it as he is a quarterback. And last time I checked, in football, that is the most important guy all the time. The chances of CU playing meaningful football games in the Big 12 this year is first and foremost determined by Shedeur's success. So how good can he be? And Deion Sanders can be called a lot of things, but inconsistent is not one of them. He was even asked this question in a different way. What would worry you if you went up against Shedeur? His answer was the same as, what does Shedeur need? Time. Not time like 1 year to the next. Time like after the snap of the football, Shedeur Sanders needs time. Even when asked by, I think it was ESPN, what would worry you most about playing against Shedeur? He said, if he has time. That's what this entire offseason, this entire transfer portal has been about in Boulder. They have to get Shedeur time. The weapons, they'll take care of themselves. Right? Because by weapons, I mean wide receivers. And what do wide receivers love more than anything else? The spotlight. CU already has that. So check that box. Offensive linemen are a little bit tougher to find. Offensive linemen are not swayed quite as much, although Jordan Seaton might be an exception to the rule. But most offensive linemen are wired a little different. But they're also much more difficult to poach. because they mean so much to your football team. And Deion Sanders has raved about this group. And let's not forget, it's not just the new guys. Tyler Brown is now eligible to play. Remember that story last year where he was denied the ability to play right away once he transferred to CU. And how I thought it was the wrong decision by the NCAA. But that is in the past, and he's going to be able to play. And he is a big part of this offensive line. I do think that Shedeur needs to work on the clock in his head. Not every single sack that he took last year was because he had no time. And I can't give you that ratio, but I saw plenty of sacks that were on the offensive line, and I saw quite a few sacks that were on Shedeur's indecisiveness. But if this offensive line is as good as Deion Sanders will tell you, and as good as rivals and college football people in the know will say, we should find out how much of the ungodly amount of sacks Shedeur took last year are a byproduct of his offensive line, and how much is it him needing that clock to go off in his head faster or to process what he is seeing faster. Because that was the crux of the matter when he moved to CU. Right? At Jackson State, he was by far the best athlete on the field, except for Travis Hunter. He could get by on sheer athleticism and talent. But in a major college football conference, he can't. And you saw that quite a bit last year. Let's see Shedeur get some time. But to me, the two are intertwined. There's no reality in which CU challenges for a Big 12 title and Shedeur Sanders takes 75 or 80 sacks. I don't know what his Heisman odds are at the moment, but I think he's going to be in that conversation. And if he is, of course, success will follow the Colorado Buffaloes. 719-247-1313. Coming up next, I've dwelled, I think, a little bit too much, if I'm being quite honest, on the negative from last night's Team USA and Canada tilt. There were plenty of players that were exciting to watch, that looked like they adjusted to international play incredibly well. And I'll talk about those guys next on Extra Sports 1300. The best pro rodeo cowboys and cowgirls from the U.S., Canada, and Mexico are here in Colorado Springs at the NFR Open at the Pikes Peak or Bus Rodeo. And with over $1 million in payouts, they'll be riding to win. This is where champions and careers are made. So why wouldn't you want to be there? I can help with that. No purchase required. I have a pair of tickets for Saturday's matinee. High noon feels appropriate for a pro rodeo. This Saturday at the Norris Penrose Event Center, if you would like to be there and experience what all this is about, be the 13th texter to text rodeo and your name to 719-247-1313. And good luck. And I wish I could give you all tickets, but I only have so many. So I feel like I've focused a little bit on the negative from last night and Team USA in Canada, talking about Joel Embiid and Jamal Murray. But don't worry, I will bring that up again at the top of the hour. I'm not done with it, but there was a lot of good from last night. And the biggest takeaway that I had from a positive standpoint was I am so glad we get Steph Curry on this stage. Now, he's played for Team USA before, but never in the Olympics. And I want to see this guy on this stage. And last night, it took him a little while to get going, right? Different three-point line. One or two shots, I think, didn't fall to start the game. And then I thought he was terrific after that. And part of this Olympic stage is just the fun that these guys have. Think about, it's like, I know there's a job to do. So maybe the correct metaphor would be like a work trip. Like, yes, you're going to do a job. Yes, you're going to meet with the client. Yes, you're going to be doing this or that, but you're going to have some fun along the way. And that's what I equated to with these Olympians. And sometimes these Olympians look like they're kids again. And even I saw some of it last night with Steph Curry. But you think about, when I go away on a work trip, I don't worry about office politics. I don't worry about any of the drama that's going on. I focus on the job and I try to have a little bit of fun along the way. Think about what some of the lives are like of these players in their office with their NBA team. LeBron is basically Atlas carrying the Laker franchise. And yes, part of it is self-inflicted. We know this. But I mean, he's carrying the Los Angeles Lakers. At least him and AD are. But, he gets to play with all this help. Look at how well Anthony Davis can defend the rim, how difficult it is to beat him when he doesn't have to get out of the paint and he has perimeter defenders in front of him. But think about, too, Steph Curry and all the drama that's been going on with the Golden State Warriors, especially lately. He loses his splash brother. The last year he's dealing with, Draymond nonsense and facing the end of their dynasty. And now he gets to go play with all these great players and gets to be on this stage, gets to wear USA on his chest, all this kind of stuff. He looked like a kid. I mean, Steph Curry, to be fair, looks like a kid most of the time. But I'm just saying in his demeanor. And this is just the start. But the best shooter that I've ever seen deserves to be on the Olympic stage. And I'm glad that we get it. If just only this once. Second biggest takeaway from a positive perspective last night in Team USA's victory over Canada. I gotta stop doubting Anthony Edwards. I gotta stop looking at his comments and going, come on, dude. And I do think that he knows what character you want him to play, and he's happy to play it. Right? It's an exaggeration of who he actually is. Does he really believe that everyone on Team USA has to fit around him? No, he doesn't. Because when he says that, he turns around, and last night he's talking about how nervous he is. I believe that same day that his comments came out about him being the number one option, he called Kevin Durant the alpha of the team. So he says things because he knows you want to hear him. And he says things because he enjoys saying those things. He knows his place. He knows that he's playing with Steph Curry and LeBron and Kevin Durant. Right? He's aware. He just played Kevin Durant, and look how he acted, but he still came away from his matchups with KD with the utmost respect. He borderline idolizes the guy. So I know he embellishes, he exaggerates, he plays that role, but also at the same time, was he the best player for Team USA last night? He led them in scoring. Just like the persona that he has at post-game press conferences and in media scrums is a bit of an exaggeration of the truth, because deep down he believes he's that guy. You know, he goes out there on the court and I'm not so sure he's not one of the Team USA's best weapons. He didn't shy away from that moment. And we'll see when he gets on to the Olympic stage for real what he's going to do. But you could argue Anthony Edwards was the best player Team USA had last night. But I don't think he should be put with the starting lineup. And that's been a big conversation since last night, is what adjustments Steve Kerr is going to make with this lineup. And Steve Kerr said that it's an ongoing process.
And we wanted to play Bam and Anthony Davis together with the second group and see what that looked like. So we'll continue to experiment as we go.
So, again, talking about AD and Bam there, but that applies to the entire team. So last night you had a starting five of Steph, Devin Booker, Drew Holiday was in for Kevin Durant, LeBron, and Embiid. Swap out Holiday for a healthy Durant, and that was the exact starting five I thought there would be. I don't want them to change it. Although, you know, Joel Embiid's place in all of this, you might want to think about. But again, you can't. Is Anthony Davis going to fare better against Nikola Jokic? So, and then what was so great about that second unit last night was it was Bam and AD together. So if you, let's just say you replace Embiid in the starting five with AD, well, to replicate what you saw last night, you're going to replace LeBron with Bam? Of course not. And it's the same thing with Anthony Edwards. Even though it was a little bit weird to see a guy that said he was the number one option and everyone had to fit around him coming off the bench, I think that's the best place for him. I do. 'Cause, I think Steve Kerr's got to be careful with this starting five. And we have to be realistic. More games than not in Paris will be absolute boat races. Right? We're only talking about 2, 3, maybe 4 games throughout the entirety of the tournament where the outcome may be in some question at some point. So I'm not trying to say that this makes all the difference in the world, but in a gold medal game, in a key group stage game, like maybe the one the 28th, I do think that their rotations, their lineups need to be right. Joel Embiid is one thing, but swap out Drew Holiday with Kevin Durant, and I think that's the 4. At least Steph, Booker, KD, LeBron, that's got to be the 4. Let KD, LeBron, and Steph play together. Devin Booker, as Steve Kerr said, fits really well with this format, with this style of play. I like Devin Booker next to Stephen Curry. I don't want Anthony Edwards in there. Now, there will be times where you need a little bit more defense, and maybe that's when Ant gets in there. But I thought Steve Kerr had it mostly right. And with Kevin Durant out, you kind of wonder where they're going to go. They went with Drew Holiday. I don't think it was the best choice. So if Kevin Durant's injury is lingering, then some other decisions need to be made, and maybe the starting 5 looks a little bit different. But healthy KD, just replace Drew Holiday with him, and I think those are the lineups you got to go with Steph. And he's not going to be with KD, and he's not going to be with LeBron. Let him run that second unit with Bam and AD, 2 guys that are just fine playing defense. Heck, how's this for a death lineup? Derek White, Anthony Edwards, Drew Holiday, Bam Adebayo, and Anthony Davis. Just like all defense and 1 bucket getter. And by the way, Anthony Edwards, pretty good defender as well. I want Anthony Edwards as unfettered as I can get him. And playing with Steph, KD, LeBron, he's going to be deferential, and he's not going to be what you want him to be. Keep him with the second unit. Keep Bam and AD there. Coach up Joel Embiid a little bit. Let him know what he can and can't do. I did think going into last night, when they're talking about all the other matches or games that they're playing, like, man, they're playing a lot of tune-up games. This is too many. And then I watched the first quarter, and I continue to watch Joel Embiid. And I said, you know what? As many friendlies as they can get in between now and the 28th, go right ahead. They need to get on the same page. They need to get some chemistry going. Joel Embiid needs to learn what he can and can't get away with at the international level. Like, they need these. That's fine. Don't rush it. Get in a few more friendlies. Next one will be Monday, by the way, against Australia from Abu Dhabi. So that will be a 10 a.m. game, I believe. 719-24-7-1313. Coming up next, we'll hit the 3 stories that are driving the show. And former Denver Bronco Justin Simmons spoke. And I call him former Denver Bronco not just because that's the local angle of it, but because he's not a current anything. Why has it taken so long for Justin Simmons to find a new team, and where would be the best fit? We'll get into that next hour as well here on Extra Sports 1300. In the meantime, don't go away just yet. In fact, don't go away at all. I want to keep you there, but I do want to let you know right now about QC Kinetics. They've been helping patients like you every day. You may be asking, like me, what do you mean like me? Well, if you're suffering from joint pain, arthritic joint pain in your knees, hips, back, or shoulder, that's what I mean by patients like you. And you're not alone. Tens of thousands of people across our great country have enlisted the help of QC Kinetics and have seen amazing results. They are the nation's leader in advanced regenerative medicine. I am not a doctor. I'll let them tell you what that means in depth when you go in and see them, but I will tell you kind of the Cliff Notes version. They are cutting edge treatments that accelerate your own body's healing properties, which revitalize your joints so you can move again. Think about it. Are you not getting out this summer as much as you'd like to because of that chronic joint pain? Isn't it worth a free consultation, free sit down, no obligation? See what they have to say? I think so. Just my opinion. 719-347-1988. 719-347-1988. QC Kinetics. Check them out. They're good people. And they're the future of medicine. 719-347-1988. Welcome in Drive Time Sports on this Thursday. Ryan Kaufman with you. Appreciate you tuning in, whether it's on air, online, through the Extra Sports 1300 app, or if you're watching on our social media platforms, Facebook, X, YouTube, Instagram, at Extra Sports 1300. If you'd like to be a part of the show, easiest way for you to do that is to text or call in at 719-247-1313. You can also find me on the X at Gingerly Tweets. Pretty good about checking that as well during the show. Right now, speaking of the show, here are the three stories that are driving it. All right, let's start with the North American Showdown in Vegas last night.
Edwards moving over to the point position. Takes a three.
Again, the cut. That's what I like about these kids. He's got a little ham in him, doesn't he?
It's got to go through me. That's what he said.
FS1 with the audio there. Team USA downs Canada in their friendly. It was a little bit tenuous to start, but in the end, Team USA gets it done in a game that, as far as the score is concerned, does not count, but there were a few takeaways that I think do count. One, to that gentleman you just heard from, well, not Gus Johnson and Coach Rafferty, but Anthony Edwards. He might just mess around and be Team USA's best player. It's not far-fetched. Led the team in scoring with 13 points, and he sure looks like, even though he admitted after the game that he had some nerves, man, he looked like he really enjoyed that stage last night. Bam Adebayo and Anthony Davis as a tandem on that second unit were very good. In fact, the best of Team USA last night was their bench. As far as the starters, that's going to take some work. Struggling early on to get a feel for one another. And Joel Embiid had just a forgettable night at the office, if I'm being quite frank. Fouls out of the game in the third quarter, visibly frustrated, not adjusting to international play well. And what in particular is he not adjusting to well? He can't get away with as much as he does in the NBA. And that's not just a Joel Embiid thing, that's an everyone thing. All the complaints you have about LeBron getting calls, Joel Embiid getting calls, being free throw merchants, I'm not saying that's completely going to go away in Paris, but it's certainly not going to be what it is in the NBA. It's different. The rules are different, freedom of movement and all that kind of stuff. It's a different set of rules, and officials just, quite frankly, do not let you get away with the same stuff that NBA officials let you get away with. And Joel Embiid found out the hard way. But especially given the performances by Anthony Davis and Bam Adebayo, you may be like, why is he even on this roster? July 28th. That's why he's on this roster. The U.S. in their first game of the Olympics takes on Serbia. The last time Nikola Jokic went up against Team USA, it was back in 2016 before any of us knew exactly what he would become. And he put up 25. Can you imagine what he's going to do with a lesser front line or on July 28th? They need bodies. That's why Grant Hill went above and beyond to get him off of the France roster and onto Team USA. But it's Nikola Jokic. And we've seen that movie with Bam Adebayo and Anthony Davis. They need at least another big man with a set of fouls to give. If they just say, you know what, we're not going to worry about it, Nikola Jokic is liable to eviscerate them. That's why Joel Embiid's on this team. But he doesn't seem like much use outside of a few fouls to give. He's not going to be much use to him unless he makes adjustments. Just one friendly, but certainly sets up what to watch for Monday when Team USA plays Australia. Here's story number 2.
My wins are different. We have to win in every area. That's the way we're judged. And I'm cool with that because we come a little different.
That is the voice of Deion Sanders, the head coach of the Colorado Buffaloes. I don't have to tell you that. At Big 12 Media Day. And what he's speaking to is if he feels extra responsibility to perform, to have his team perform, given who he is. And he's absolutely right. Because of what he says, because of the way he conducts himself, because of the grand transfer portal experiment he's undertaking where he's flipping large chunks of his roster year to year, he's the most scrutinized head coach in all of college athletics. And he's got just as many detractors as he has supporters. And those detractors are waiting for anything to seize on. And even if this team has success this year, there will be detractors. Deion Sanders is not wrong when he says he has to win in every single way. He can't overlook the classroom. He can't overlook winning on the field. He can't overlook any way to bring in players. He was very quick to point out yesterday that he played a significant number of his freshmen. And they all weren't as talented as Travis Hunter and Dylan Edwards. He can't just use the transfer portal. Yes, that is the vast majority of the improvement year over year for the Colorado roster. But he also has to hit on high school kids. And he's got to get more out of the guys remaining on the roster one year to the next than he got the previous year. He has to do everything right. But he does bring a lot of it on himself, and he is well aware of that, and he does not shy away from that. Depending on how you judge success, I think this will be a successful second year in Boulder, just like it was a successful and all told in year one. But those people are out there and they will point to whatever. I mean, people, I don't want to say we because I wasn't. People were talking about his bedside manner. People were bringing up the famous Louis speech 12 weeks into the season. He can't even challenge his players or motivate his players the right way in their minds. They're always going to be out there, but this is what Deion wants. So don't shed a tear for him. Don't feel bad for him. This is what he wants. He wants every aspect of this. He wants his sycophants. He wants his fanboys. He wants the people that will defend him at every turn. He wants his own YouTube channel to be able to preach his own gospel. And he wants the haters. He wants the detractors. He wants the critics. He wants them all together. because they boost the brand. They get people interested. They get money rolling in. He wants all of it. Here's story number 3.
He strikes out his 10th batter of the game. It is his second time in his first 11 major league starts that he has double-digit strikeouts. Innings of no-hit ball.
Pirates television, they're on the call. Paul Skeens does something very Skeensian. Can we introduce that into the vernacular? For the second time this season, Paul Skeens has gone at least 7 innings, while at least striking out 11, while giving up no hits. That feat has only been accomplished by one other pitcher in the history of baseball, and it is Nolan Ryan. And Paul Skeens is doing this 2 months into his major league career. He is what Steven Strasburg was billed to be. This generational pitching talent that you are going to be in awe of when he steps on the mound, and he's lived up to it. But the other side of this story is, why wasn't he allowed to finish out the game? Why, for the second time this season, did he only go 7 innings while striking out at least 11 and giving up no hits? Why won't the Pirates let him finish it out? And it is an uncomfortable truth about Major League Baseball. Call it the load management of Major League Baseball. We don't like load management in the NBA, but what do? We won't admit it out loud. We know it's probably a good idea. It makes sense. And for a guy that's 2 months into his career, with the rash of season-ending, career-altering injuries that we have seen from pitchers this season, the Pirates must think of the bigger picture. Paul Skeens in year 3, Paul Skeens in year 5, it's a different conversation than Paul Skeens in month 2. You hate it. You wish he would have finished out the game. I know that more than anybody else, Paul Skeens would have liked to finish out that game. But you got to think of the bigger picture. The Pirates have been given a gift from the baseball gods, and they cannot squander it. They cannot push this guy like so many other pitchers are pushed. They have to protect him, while still realizing that if the Pirates want any chance of going to the postseason, they got to let Paul Skeens be Paul Skeens, and they got to let him dominate. The Pirates won 1-0 today. They needed every one of those 21 outs that Paul Skeens got them. I hope his next start is in the All-Star game. I believe I have the calendar synced correctly. Got to see that guy going up against the best of the AL. And I mean like the best to start the game, not the best to end the game. I want to see him against Judge. I want to see him against any number of Baltimore Orioles. Seven innings, no hits, 11 strikeouts. Only walked one batter. Paul Skeens, ladies and gentlemen. 719-247-1313. Take your thoughts on the three stories that are driving the show. Coming up next, while Team USA without Derek White was able to get a victory, the conversation around Team USA is not about Derek White's impending arrival, but the player that he may have been chosen over. That's next here on Extra Sports 1300. So Derek White was not able to make the trip out to Vegas in time to play last night. Not that I would have even expected him to play, even if he could get out to Las Vegas. But pretty soon, Derek White, maybe, certainly he'll be joining them in Abu Dhabi. I got to imagine that he's on the flight with them that they took today. But the conversation right now is more about someone who was taken, that he took the spot of, so to speak, Jaylen Brown. And I mentioned yesterday that when Phil Knight went at Kyrie Irving based on his anti-Semitic comments, or his comments that were viewed as anti-Semitic, however you came down on that, and Jaylen Brown didn't defend Kyrie but kind of went after Nike. This was back in 2022, and said, since when does Nike care about ethics? And I said, honestly, that's, as much as I love the story of Derek White being on Team USA, and I'm not going to be thinking about Jaylen Brown being on this team once they get to the Olympics, but right now, here in the moment, it's a discussion. And I do think Jaylen Brown would have checked a lot of boxes in replacing Kawhi. I don't think that Derek White is a wholly better fit than Jaylen Brown. I just don't. So it was curious to me that Jaylen Brown was left off, and Jaylen Brown was curious. And since then, he has fortified my initial take, because he's thumbed out a few more tweets and calling out Nike. So he clearly believes that Nike is behind him not getting the spot vacated by Kawhi Leonard. Grant Hill, whose job it is to put together this roster, was asked about Jaylen Brown's omission.
We're proud of our partners, obviously, in USA Basketball, but this is about putting together a team.
There's a lot that goes into these kind of conversations. And from Grant Hill's perspective, his decisions. Right? You talk about free agent fits, you talk about trades, you talk about draft picks. It's not just one thing unless you are the son of a superstar on that particular team. There's not one thing that automatically makes you the choice. And that also means that not one thing is necessarily keeping you from taking that spot. So again, I say, I don't know that Derek White is a completely better fit. I don't know that that is the case. Could he be just a little bit better of a fit than Jaylen Brown? Possibly. But point of attack defense can't be just the only reason, right? When Kawhi Leonard bowed out, or more accurately, when the Clippers told Team USA he's not playing, Grant Hill did not just say, oh, we need the best point of attack defender we can get. That's Derek White. Boom, he's in. Wasn't just one reason. So this applies to both sides of the argument. Okay? The only reason Jaylen Brown is not on Team USA is not because of Nike. Okay? And he has to acknowledge that. But I think it's naive to think that Jaylen Brown's omission has nothing to do with Nike. And this is not people who say there are plenty of, other athletes, and Grant Hill made a joke and said that he was a FILA athlete and he played on Team USA. And I know he knows this, but for anybody engaging in the conversation, this is not about Jaylen Brown repping Reebok or whatever, Adidas. That's not what this is about. This is about Jaylen Brown going at Nike. That's what this is. Or this is at least what Jaylen Brown thinks this is about. It's not the reason they chose Derek White over Jaylen Brown. It's not. But I think it's also incorrect to say that him going at Nike and Phil Knight a couple years ago had nothing to do with it. Again, I bring up Caitlin Clark. I bring up Isaiah Thomas. Politics exist. It's part of it, as unfortunately as it is. Now, what you hope is that maybe it was 1%. What you hope is that Grant Hill decided on Derek White without even thinking about Nike. But I don't think Jaylen Brown's just making stuff up. I don't. And it's out there in black and white for everybody to see. He went at Nike. And he firmly believes Nike's what's keeping him. And some percentage of the decision, I have to think, had to do with it. But I don't want to let it get in the way of a great story of Derek White. This will pass. We got a weekend coming up, 24-hour news cycle, whatever you want to call it. We'll all move on. Jaylen Brown will be just fine. This too shall pass. Not trying to minimize his feelings. I'm just saying we'll move on, and it will be great to see Derek White play. But right now, in the moment, this is a conversation. But I will say to Jaylen Brown, like, be easy here. Okay? Because that is your teammate. That part of this cannot be forgotten. Like, Jaylen Brown, maybe you feel like you were more deserving. You know, we can all hear the Isaiah Thomas Last Dance clip in our heads. Maybe you feel like you're more deserving. Maybe you feel like you were hard done by. Maybe you feel like someone powerful has a vendetta against you. But understand who went instead of you, and understand at some level that you don't want to be going at this so hard and for so long, because you got to face Derek White. And if you continue to make this about you versus Nike, you're going to minimize your teammate's selection for Team USA, something that on some level you should be happy about. And I don't think that Jaylen Brown is unhappy. He's focused on, it's not who went over him. It was the fact that he didn't get to go. Right? It's like Isaiah Thomas. He didn't pick out, one player and say, I deserved it over him. He's merely saying, I met the criteria. I deserve to go. Jaylen Brown's in that mode right now, but it's trickier because it's his teammate. Be a little bit careful there. Easy. Make sure you thumb out a tweet congratulating Derek White. Make sure people see that. Because I don't think this is about, oh, Derek White doesn't deserve it. It's that Jaylen Brown does. 719-24-7, 1313. Coming up next, Justin Simmons, still with training camp not that far away. In fact, for the Broncos, it's as far away as the Olympics are. But Justin Simmons still has yet to find a team. Is that starting to wear on him? You'll hear from the former Broncos safety next. I got good news and I got bad news if you're a Broncos fan. The good news is training camp right around the corner. Bad news is one of your favorite players is still without a gig in the NFL. Justin Simmons put on a golf event today and spoke about perhaps how difficult it is to still be without an NFL job. That from our old friend Brady King, now of Denver 7. You know the reason why. It's not because he's not talented or he's washed or anything like that. It's just the position he plays is far from the most important position on a football team. And I think, and I don't have any inside knowledge on this, if it was just a 1-year prove it deal that he was okay with taking, I think he'd be signed by now. I think he's looking for a multi-year deal. Every day that goes by, that's less and less likely. But when training camp starts, injuries happen, teams identify their weaknesses a little bit better and go, hey, Justin Simmons is sitting there. Maybe we give him a call. I don't think he gets the contract that he wants. But there are a lot of NFL players that have to go through this. So if it's a 1-year prove it deal, I think you could forget it, scheme fit and all that kind of stuff. You just lop off a ton of teams, right? Justin Simmons is not going from a Denver Broncos situation where he didn't do any winning to go to another team that doesn't have a chance to compete. So automatically you're thinking Philly, Kansas City, Buffalo, Baltimore, San Francisco, Detroit. Right? I think early on there was some Steelers. Don't do that. Don't go with the Steelers. I may like their backup quarterback, but that is a brutal schedule and a brutal division. Yeah, maybe Cincinnati would be fine. If you really drill down into it, I think you look at a team like San Francisco that now has everybody's least favorite head coach. No, not Greg Berhalter. Brandon Staley as its defensive coordinator. So there's a scheme fit there. And then obviously San Francisco, barring something completely unforeseen, is going to be one of the last probably 4 teams standing in the NFL this season. Or how about you look at somebody that he has some familiarity with, who he had some success with? Remember who the defensive coordinator is in Philadelphia. It's Vic Fangio. And to me, I put Philadelphia at the top of that list. San Francisco would be a fine fit for Justin Simmons, but Philadelphia, to me, from the get-go, was a place that I had identified for him because of Vic Fangio. But it's evolved from the Eagles need all the secondary help they can get to now they have secondary help, but it's super young. think about the impact Justin Simmons made in Denver from a leadership perspective. How could you, if you're Philadelphia, not want Justin Simmons taking Cooper DeJean under his wing? And he was an incredibly productive player last year. I don't know if there's a market that you can buy into for Justin Simmons' next landing spot, but I'd probably roll with Philadelphia. It makes a lot of sense. He could go lead a young secondary. Yeah, maybe that secondary is going to get torched on occasion, but he can help that. That's the thing. He could be a productive member on one of the probably 4 or 5 best teams in the NFL, a team that has a real shot to play in the Super Bowl. I think Justin Simmons has that on his list. I think he would love to play in a Super Bowl. I mean, I think it just checks all the boxes except maybe money or length of contract. But Justin Simmons can absolutely still play in this league. And he can have a tremendous impact on the right team. The problem in Denver was, as good as he was, and now Patrick Surtain is kind of in this boat. You could be elite for your position. And if it's not quarterback or pass rusher or wide receiver, you're not going to ultimately affect winning. The Broncos have had Justin Simmons this whole time. It's done them no good in terms of wins and losses. They've had Pat Surtain for how long, and it hasn't done them a bit of good in terms of winning and losing. It's not their fault, but it's just the fact of the matter. Hope he catches on somewhere. Of course, there is the troll in me that would be very pleased to see him playing at Arrowhead Stadium on a regular basis next year. And it not for nothing, but you take Justin Simmons off the table. How many guys have had the success of Patrick Mahomes may never throw another interception again if Justin Simmons is on the Chiefs? Who else picks off Patrick Mahomes? Yes, plenty of people, but no one picks him off more than Justin Simmons. So hopefully he catches on somewhere. He deserved a better fate in Denver. That's for sure. I don't fault the Broncos for making the decision they did, but hope he catches on. Couple year texts here. 719-247-1313. From the 719, this is Nick. Can you imagine France with the front court of Embiid, Gobert, and Wemby? That's why the USA poached him. Might be a little bit of that. That's a good point. If that was the case, I would dare France to play all 3 of them at the same time. I don't think that they would. Perhaps, speaking from the same place as I was talking about Jaylen Brown earlier, it's never just one thing, but let's make the main thing, Jokic. Maybe somewhere in there is, hey, France might be one of our biggest competitors in this tournament. Let's poach. I think it's much more Jokic related, but that'd be fun. I actually like that better. Not to tell Joel Embiid where he should and should not play, but I'd actually like him on France a little bit better for that exact reason. See the block that Wemby had? Making the rounds on social media. It's not going to take... I don't think the Spurs did nearly enough with Harrison Barnes and Chris Paul to, accelerate the timeline. But I think the Spurs are going to take the biggest step of any team in the NBA this year just because of Wemby alone. Wemby could play with almost the exact same team he played with last year, and I think the Spurs are going to win a ton more games. Clock is ticking. If you're a Nuggets fan, it's not just OKC, Minnesota. Yeah, you're more worried about them now, but that guy in San Antonio, they're not going to be that far away. Steve G says, with Dion's personality, it's so easy to jump on the hate. I hate Sanders bandwagon, excuse me. Can't read. He has performed excellent at every level of football, and many are jealous. You're not wrong. You're not wrong. And certainly you had that. I mean, it's like, here's another comparison in the sports world. Caitlin Clark. Do you think that WNBA players were a little resentful, a little jealous? Tell me Dan Lanning wasn't jealous of Deion Sanders. Tell me Lincoln Riley didn't have resentment towards Deion Sanders. Especially Dan Lanning sure beat him like he was jealous of him. Sure beat him like he was resentful of him. Yeah, it's part of it. We are dealing with human beings. These are not robots. They feel feelings. And one of those feelings, even though it's allegedly a deadly sin, jealousy, envy. But that feeling goes away when you beat a team by 40 or 50 points. It dissipates. It's easy to do, but I'll say this on the other side of the coin here, it's if you want to like Deion Sanders, it's really easy to like him. Right? You understand why he has the haters that he does, but I also kind of understand, even though sometimes I roll my eyes a little bit when I'm hearing questions and post-game press conferences from these people, but you also understand why he has the fanboys. In the media, you understand why. Some of them you have to put media in quotation marks. But you understand why there are some people, media, fans, that fall in love with this guy. If it all depends on where you want to start. Right? If you want to start from a place of I want to like this guy, you're hooked. Right? $1 million smile. Good dude. Really is, to Albert's earlier point, about the right stuff. Has the right priorities. Yeah, you fall in love with the guy. But if you go in, and it would be fascinating to do an experiment on this, take the first thing someone said about Deion Sanders when he was hired, or when Deion Sanders started to do things at CU. That first thing you said, and I bet you haven't changed your mind. I think that's the thing. I don't think Deion Sanders has changed a lot of hearts and minds in the last year or so. That's why I say it's a lot like President Trump in that way. Do you think that many people have really changed their mind on President Trump? I don't think so. But you're not going to sway the people on one side of the spectrum or the other. Nothing that happens is going to change that. Deion Sanders has the same effect. If you went in wanting it to work, wanting to love Deion Sanders, you love him. And maybe you love him even more now. I think the same is true on the other side. If you went in doubting it, if you went in not liking it, you're probably even more entrenched in your belief. Polarizing, I believe, is the word. It's nothing, really nothing like it. And even Caitlin Clark on the whole is not even like that. To have two polar. Angel Reese, I think, is more one way or another than Caitlin Clark is. Last word to Albert. If you really drill down into it, Ryan Kaufman needs to understand that the Steelers' backup QB ain't going to make it. Justin Simmons needs to go to Pittsburgh to help Justin Fields. It is something about Justin Fields is going to be on my tombstone. I know it. And not because of me. I'm not going to put it on there. I feel like as a human being, my identity is not tied to Justin Fields, but clearly I have given off the impression otherwise. At least when I'm being eulogized on this show, if I am so lucky as to be eulogized on this show by whoever my successor might be, I'm sure that Justin Fields will come up. I do acknowledge that there is a chance that Justin Fields will not work in Pittsburgh. I still think he will. To the degree of the Pittsburgh Steelers winning a Super Bowl? No. But I will say this, without equivocation, with the utmost confidence, Justin Fields will prove to be the better quarterback in Pittsburgh than the guy who supposedly has the starting job right now. And I will also say, without equivocation, with the utmost confidence, that QC Kinetics is the nation's leader in advanced regenerative medicine. This is an alternative to surgery. It's an alternative to drugs, which can have some pretty steep downside to it. And if you've been told by your doctor that because of your arthritic joint pain, those are your only two options, QC Kinetics is saying maybe it's not. And what I like about them is when you sit down with them for a free consultation, that may be the conclusion. As much as they believe they can help you out, and I think they can, they may say that you got to go one of those other two routes. But isn't it worth getting? We get second opinions all the time on things. Here's a second opinion or a third opinion with QC Kinetics if you've been dealing with bone-on-bone pain in your knees, hips, back, or shoulder. The local medical professionals at QC Kinetics are ready to help you get your life back with regenerative, restorative, cellular treatments for your achy joints. This is the future of medicine. Worth a free consultation. 719-347-1988. 719-347-1988. QC Kinetics, 719-347-1988. It has been my pleasure to serve you today. Hopefully, I'll have you back tomorrow. Same bat time, same bat channel. Sound good? 3 o'clock. Talk to you then.